maybe we could start with introductions then. If you could just tell us who you are and what it is you do first, please.
So my name is Veli-Pekka Kivimäki, so long and complicated Finnish name, so everybody calls me VP for short. So my day job is at Microsoft, but so I'm involved with my spare time with Bellingcat, which is I think even Elliot is having trouble now describing what Bellingcat actually has become. But it started off as really as a place for citizen journalists to both publish their own material as well as then offer resources for citizen journalists to sort of help them get started with their own research on the topics of their interest. And I would say that for Bellingcat, one of the focus areas really has become the Ukraine conflict. So as Bellingcat was being launched by Elliot last summer, at the same time the Malaysian airliner MH17 was shut down over Ukraine, and that really became a sort of big project for Bellingcat. And sort of we had a sort of a small team of people form around that topic, starting to research that from open sources from different perspectives. So that's also what I'm going to show today. Then is in relation to the Ukraine conflict, we run this. What we call the Ukraine conflict vehicle tracker, where we collected different sightings of military equipment from both in Ukraine and outside of Ukraine, to see that if you can see any presence of Russian troops inside of Ukraine in these sightings. So that's what we'll be walking through later.
Okay, and I mean, just to jump to kind of what are the wider implications of this work? So how is it used, and how, for example, that vehicle tracking? How does that kind of relate to maybe mainstream media accounts of what's going on or other accounts?
So if broadly speaking, the impact that we've had, so for example, talking about the MH17 case, though, that has attracted a lot of attention, and it's been published from Sydney Morning Herald to BBC to pretty much all over the world. So we got a lot of coverage and lots of positive feedback on that sort of we were doing something that it seems like nobody else was doing. And there's been sort of an interesting interplay also with sort of more traditional media going there. So we've been in contact then with reporters who have actually been to Ukraine, who've been to the crash site. So that's been very interesting. With the vehicle tracking effort, so certainly that's been used to by different parties to sort of show evidence that yes, there is Russian presence in Ukraine. So there's a political angle there as well. But I think one of the things that we also want to show with all these different things that we do is the potential that there is in sort of collecting this kind of open source information, analyzing it, and then publishing that. So we certainly believe that this is only the beginning, and we're scratching the surface of what can be done. And we hope that by sort of showing this example of what we do and being open about it, we can also then encourage others to sort of engage in similar activities, not only in with the Ukraine conflict, but then across the globe in different areas. We've had a lot of contact with journalists, and it's interesting how the discussion has changed a little bit, especially with the vehicle tracking, that it's not just about they're coming for us for a story that, hey, do you have something to report? But it's more like they come with specific data requests that have you seen vehicles of this type in this area in this time window, and sort of that's what we can help with the data set that we've been collecting.
Okay, and I guess when traditional mainstream journalists are coming to you with that, it's because they don't have the skills or the experience or the tools to do it. Where does the kind of lack of knowledge lie in those people?
I think a part of it is that it takes a lot of time to actually come up with that information. So you have to go through lots of material, you have to analyze it, and then you start understanding that what was where at what point in time. And so once we've gone through that process, then it's easier to sort of answer those questions. That did you see Russian tanks in Debaltseve, for example, during the offensive? Then we can say, well, we have these sightings of things that match sort of descriptions of Russian tanks. So we can sort of answer those questions based on the work that we've already done.
Okay, that's great. So maybe we could have a look at exactly what we're talking about here.
Sure.
If you could show us through some screen share, maybe case study.
So this particular page I'm showing right now, this is the actual site of the vehicle tracking project. So this is where we've collected all the data together, and we use a platform called Silk that's great for visualizing masses of data in sort of different interesting ways, and it also gives us a lot of flexibility for the people actually accessing the sites to sort of do their own analysis of the data. So one of the things especially that that is pretty popular is this mapping that we have. So for each of the sightings that we have a pin here on the map, which actually then acts as a link also to these different sightings. And what these sightings can then be, they're either videos or pictures, or in some cases they're even press reports that might include some interesting imagery. And what we've done is we've refined this down to we actually identify all the equipment that we see in the videos. So we actually can then also search this data based on the categories of the different equipment. So in this case, for example, we see that we have a of BTR armored vehicles, and then we can, if we start diving into that, then we can actually get all the different sightings of BTR armored vehicles that we've tracked so far in the database. So.
Sorry, I was going to say, and are some of those vehicles of more concern? Are some of those sightings more alarming than others? So you're able to filter through that?
So yeah, I would say that some of them are definitely more interesting than others. So we have a couple of instances, for example, of what I can pull up from here. Just a minute. So if we, for example, look for Pantsir, this is a uniquely Russian air defense system. And if we actually then go through all the different sightings that we have of this particular platform, we actually see that there are some sightings just outside of the border in Russia as well as in Ukraine itself. So this is obviously interesting. And just this last week, there was U.S. State Department was noting an increase in air defense systems deployed in East Ukraine. So we have data from a couple of months ago that also points in that direction that, yes, there have been these systems deployed there. All this data that we have with this from an Excel sheet, and sort of how we actually populate this sheet is that we run a process through Checkdesk where people can submit then their reports of these different sightings. And what this looks like in Checkdesk then is that we have this one report one story where we have people then submitting reports through the tool, so through the submit report functionality here. And what this backlog actually looks like is that we have I think we've had so far about 400 different reports specific to the vehicle tracking project, and we can see here that we have 102 verified reports here as well. All right, so and if we have a look at these different kinds of reports that we have here, obviously what we need to do for everything that's coming in, we need to verify to the best of our abilities that what is it that we're looking at. So if we have a report of something filmed in Lugansk, we need to do geolocation to see that is this actually filmed where it was said it was filmed. Also then going through identifying the equipment is something that we can do here if it's not immediately obvious what it is that we're looking at. But if we take sort of one report as an example here, is that we have a video from Newsfront, which is a sort of separatist news source, which is then showing movement of military equipment reportedly in Lugansk. And this report was submitted into the tool, and we also then got as a submission then the location for this. So somebody who submitted this also submitted this location for it. They were saying that this was filmed at these coordinates, providing then the Google Map links, and being kind enough also to then illustrate that how did they actually end up with this location that they had. So here we see the Google imagery on the right on the background. We can see these landmarks that are also then visible in the video here. So we can be pretty sure that this is what it says it is. And so this geolocation approach is something that we do quite a lot. So we want to be sure that what we receive is really then where it said it was filmed.
Okay, so this example that you're showing us, this has been submitted by somebody on the ground using the system. Is that right?
That's correct.
And then it's your job. It's their job to provide evidence as verification. But do you then do a second pass as well?
Yes. So in some cases, we get the information from them about the location that they provide their own confirmation that I validated that this was filmed here. But we don't get that in all cases. So there are quite a few cases where we actually do that on our own. But for all the geolocation work that's been done and submitted through the tool, we also do double check that and verify that we agree then what was done.
Okay. So have you got any cases that have come in recently that we could look at how the verification works or how you might work through it? Or?
So I don't have here handy other examples besides this particular example, but how would generally go that we would start off either with Google Maps or Yandex Maps or Google Earth. And in the videos, usually we start looking for landmarks, so things like terrain shape. So if we can see mountains or something of that nature, roads, and then these other landmarks that are visible. Like in this case, we see this big hill as well as this industrial complex. So if the location is given as Luhansk for this particular video, so what we would do is we would actually start just very, very simply looking at the Luhansk region from aerial imagery. So this is usually that's a good starting point. So we would start then from the overhead maps, looking at where do we see similar type of terrain, where do we see similar type of industrial buildings that would then lead us to this conclusion about where this particular video was filmed. In some cases, then you can see road signs, for example, that or store names or something like that. That makes it a lot easier, so you can search for those specific things. But then in other cases, all you have to work with then are these sort of terrain landmarks.
That's great. That's really interesting. That's useful. Is there anything else specifically that you think is relevant in reference to kind of these processes or the kind of processes that you're involved in?
So maybe just another example of the kind of submissions that we get through the tool. So in this case, we have a video of a main battle tank in Donetsk, reportedly, and in this case, we have a person who actually says that they've found this vehicle already on our database, and what they're doing is that they're submitting then a new sighting of this particular vehicle. So this is something I'm just currently working on, and so we have video here of this particular tank that the person is saying that it's the same as this one. So what we would then do in these cases, we would look at the details on these tanks. So what kind of matching features can we actually find between these two that would lead us to the conclusion that they are indeed the same tank or that they're not. So this is the kind of verification of work that we do. And there are cases then when we just say that it could be, but we can't verify it. So in those cases, we would then tag these as undetermined in the tool. So what happens then is that what you could see here in this particular case that I had tagged this particular sighting as verified, and I had added this number here that's saying added as 1233. And all these sightings then that are verified then are added to this master Excel sheet that is actually feeding then into that Silk platform I was showing earlier. So basically break this down into rows of data here that are easily then visualized. So if you have 1233, for example, here, we give them a unique ID, we give them a name, date when the sighting was from, details of the equipment, as well as then the location along with the coordinates. And usually what we do also that in the cases where we get submissions to the check desk, then we also include then the link back to check desk to the actual report where it was sourced from.
So each row here is a different sighting.
Correct.
And they're all sightings that have been submitted to check desk.
So we had the first 100 that we did ourselves just to sort of have a good data set to launch the site with. But since then, everything is submitted by the user. So we're currently at we started at 1,000, so we currently have 317 sightings. So we've got over 200 verified submissions from the users.
Right. Okay. So, but I suppose what it doesn't necessarily account for is people outside of your frame of reference who might be tweeting or Facebooking photos on their own terms, but might be unaware of check desk, for example, or.
That's correct. But what we also do is that we do monitor Twitter quite actively between the group of people that we have. So we do ourselves then in some cases pick up sightings of things that we find interesting, and we submit those to check desk ourselves. And then we also have other people in a sort of a community of tank nerds, I would say, who are then monitoring these accounts. And we do have good user submissions then from those people as well that sort of see something interesting online.
And in those instances where it's kind of things you're scooping up off Twitter, for example, are you able to get in contact with the original sources for those as part of the verification?
It may not be possible always to get back to the original source on those. So in some cases, these might be from VK profiles of people who actually live in Russia, and some of those personally identifying details might have been already removed from the post. So it's not always possible to go back to the original source of the photos.
Okay, but it sounds like you've got the various sightings covered through either scooping up secondary sources like that, or people submitting their primary sources to check desk anyway.
Right. So we try to do a good job of it. So what I would say, we err on the side of caution. So we rather than flag things as undetermined than sort of over eagerly tag something as verified. So we try to be diligent in that process to really make sure that we have good confidence in what we're actually publishing.
Okay. Yeah. Great. That's great. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.